Lights are going up, snow is falling down. There's a feeling of goodwill around town. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here. People throwing parties, ugly sweaters everywhere. Stockings hung up by the chimney with care. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time.
Audible's best of 2024 picks are here. Discover the year's top audiobooks, podcasts, and originals in all your favorite genres. From memoirs and sci-fi to mysteries and thrillers, Audible's curated list in every category is the best way to hear 2024's best in audio entertainment. Like a stunning new full-cast production of George Orwell's 1984. Heartfelt memoirs like Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson's Lovely One. The year's best fiction, like The Women by Kristen Hanna, and Percival Everett's brilliantly subversive James. Audible. There's more to imagine when you listen. Go to audible.com/imagine and discover all the year's best waiting for you.
Today, the LGBTQ+ community is at a crossroads, with our loved ones and hard-won rights increasingly under attack. For decades, the Human Rights Campaign has been at the forefront of the fight for equality in the face of discrimination and harassment. With the support of people like you, HRC fights for a world where lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people can live openly and thrive, free from fear. If you're ready to support the fight for equality, to donate today, visit hrc.org/give. That's hrc.org/GIVE.
This episode brought to you by the following patrons: Leaf Girl, Min, Jason, Sex Caliber Bones a lot, Madeline, Alyssa, Vixen, Holly, Laura, Jeremy with the laser eyes, Allie, Logan, Libby, Aaron, Kristen, Tia, and Jonathan. And all the patrons want you to know you're loved, you're listened to, and you're a valuable member of this awesome Horror Virgin community. And if you want to hang out with all of us, do so in the Facebook group where we'll be hanging out daily.
Hey, Todd.
Yes, ma'am?
I'd like to show you my outfit.
Oh, Paige is yellow on yellow today.
Yellow on yellow.
I love it.
This was one of our Christmas presents from work.
Nice. Okay.
It is a matching sweatsuit in a color that our CEO vehemently disliked.
I love the pettiness of that. That's amazing.
I just sat in one meeting and he was like, does it have to be the yellow? And everyone was like, yes. Anyway. It's yellow. Very yellow.
It looks great, though. I'd wear that.
Anyway, it's the perfect outfit for getting cozy and talking about a movie. So
let's get into it.
Thank you for tuning into Horror Virgin. I'm Paige.
And I'm your Horror Virgin Todd, which means I don't like scary movies, but you guys make me watch them. And this week, Paige made us watch The Exorcism.
Not to be confused with The Exorcist, the Pope's Exorcist, the one with the girl that's like part of the Exorcism X-Men. All of the Conjuring movie. Like, it's not any of those. It's The Exorcism.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The one that came out this year starring Russell Crowe. And I guess this one, he isn't really a priest. He's not really an exorcist. So, like, we were saying that, like, we thought it was going to be just like the Pope's Exorcist. And it wasn't, because it wasn't nearly as good. But.
Well, okay. So, because I had some thoughts about this. Mikey always says this. I know he's not the only person. I know he didn't originate it. He's just the one I hear it from the most often. That most movies exist on a spectrum from good to fun.
Yes.
And your best movies are both, right? I think this is a few script edits and a couple editing choices away from being a really good movie, but not a fun movie at all.
I agree with that.
And then Pope's Exorcist is a bad movie that's extremely fun.
Yes, absolutely.
That's where I land.
Yeah, I do think that the Pope's Exorcist is just so wacky. It's like out there and it's like fun because of it. This movie, I think, was like 3 steps from greatness.
Yes, agreed.
And that, by 3 steps, I mean like probably another script pass.
Yes.
And then some like editing notes or, you know, like those kind of steps, right? Because they are close. I feel like they got really close to creating like a really interesting, like, oh shit, Russell Crowe is just battling his demons.
PTSD about religious trauma. Absolutely. Yes.
And I would have loved that story, which
I think there's a very easy way to get that story with an editing pass, but we'll talk about it when we get into the movie.
I agree, because that story is there. That story fully is there. Like, it's not subtext, it's there. You see it.
Right.
It's just it doesn't land really well at the end, that story.
Yes.
And I feel like had it landed that story, I would have been like, oh shit, that was a great sort of...
This is incredible.
Yeah, that was a great sort of incredible reveal in this Exorcism movie that maybe isn't necessarily an Exorcism movie anymore.
Right,
but
right,
it didn't land it that way. Instead, David Hyde Priest is like, I'll take it, let's go. And then like...
And it's crazy, and it completely devolves the metaphor in that one scene.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why I was like, it's not as good, because like it just didn't... It either didn't know what it was or didn't want to make the point I think the whole movie wanted to make.
Okay, I think it's two things. One, I think if you cut the cold open, because the cold open makes it very clear that something supernatural is happening.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yes, you would have to cut the cold open unless you like do a flashback and you see like Russell Crowe like pushing that guy off the thing.
I mean, maybe.
Like it's just a straight up murderer.
I don't even think you need it.
I don't think you need it either.
I think it's stronger just whispered amongst the cast of like he died mysteriously.
Right. And then you don't know whether it is just Russell Crowe losing his mind to his addictions because he's under a lot more stress now and it's hard for him to stay sober. All of that.
Right.
Or it's supernatural.
Right. And at that point, if it's just a rumor, then it could be him extrapolating that rumor and maybe it's not true, much like the crazy documentary my mother and I watched, The Kings of Tupelo.
Oh my God, we just started watching that page. What
Oh my God.
is
Okay, when you
happening?
finish it, we need to talk. When you finish it, we need to talk.
Okay.
But not until then.
No joke. I watched the first 20 minutes of it and then you were like, I'm ready, let's go. And so I hopped up and we came out here.
Oh,
so yeah.
Okay. Here's the thing. It's a fascinating documentary about a man who doesn't understand what morgues do. Anyway, but like we'll get into another time.
I did get to that point and I was like, okay, he found a severed head in the morgue. That sounds like some morgue shit.
That's where it goes.
Yeah.
It's why you go to the morgue and be surprised.
I've seen the autopsy of Jane Doe. Like, I get it.
Right?
I'm so glad that guy like got out of the mortuary business and decided to start Fox News or whatever. Anyway, it's a Brian Cox joke. Sorry.
It is a Brian Cox. Like that exactly though. If you cut that cold open, if it's just a rumor, and then you truly, for the entire movie, question, is something supernatural happening? Or is Russell Crowe suffering from severe PTSD from religious trauma? Because the movie, without explicitly calling it out until like the third act, the movie very much suggests he was assaulted and molested as a child in the church.
Yeah.
And he has not dealt with it. And I do love that up until the Act 3, David Hyde Pierce's character is one of those priests that's like, he's very much a Father Karras, to be honest with you, because that's what this is supposed to be.
Yes.
Where he's like, look, I know he's acting erratically and all this stuff. I think he has some stuff he hasn't dealt with therapy-wise. Like, he goes to mental health as the first answer. Like, there's a whole lot to like about that story.
And he is qualified to go there in the realm of the movie because he actually went to college for that.
Right.
And then became a priest or whatever.
And then became a priest.
Yeah. Or
at the same time, who knows?
As a part of
it.
Whatever.
Yeah. But I really like all of that. I feel very much the same way about this that I feel about Dr. Sleep in some ways, where I feel like the recovery storyline in Dr. Sleep is so incredibly strong and works so incredibly well. And then it's the supernatural element that gets layered on top of it that seems to diminish some of that message sometimes. A little less with Dr. Sleep because it is still The Shining, right? So you still know. And with this one, literally up until if you don't have the cold open, and if you very subtly change some of the times that his daughter finds him awake at night.
Sure.
Or sleepwalking. Until Act 3, you can't come down one way or another whether or not this is real or in his head.
It's cool.
And that's a great movie.
I know.
To the point where I was like 2 acts into this movie and I was like, this is a case study in marketing because nobody saw this. Everyone saw Pope's Exorcist, and it's because Pope's Exorcist had like shitloads of money for a movie that was not that great. And this movie is actually really good and really well made. Now, then you get to Act 3, and I think the part with David Hyde Pierce was a studio note, where I think the studio was like, well, you called it The Exorcism, you got to have an exorcism. And I'm like, I think you could use the word exorcism in a metaphorical sense.
Yes,
to
I agree.
Explain him grappling with that trauma.
Yes.
And it does not have to be capital E exorcism the way we've seen it play out in all these other movies. I think it just becomes the framework for how he then grapples with the emotional war within. And I would, if they had done that instead of the nonsense we get in the third act of this movie, I would have stood and clapped. I would have been like, this is maybe one of the best exorcism movies anyone's ever done.
Yeah.
Because it's so based in reality and it's so relatable. His character is so relatable. The struggles are so relatable. But then they literally throw it away in the third act. So like 3 things that would help this movie. 1 more script pass to trim out some of that stuff and streamline the story, which is tough because it's only 90 minutes anyway.
I know.
And then 2, an editing pass to, again, streamline and make a clearer through line for that story. And 3, better Foley with the teapot, which he gets him over the head with it.
I have that note too, just because it's The Conjuring 2, right?
No, it is Insidious 2.
That's right. It's Insidious. When he gutter chucks that teapot across the kitchen and bounces it off her head, I laugh every time. But it doesn't sound that way in this. It just has a very unsatisfactory like thunk to it.
Just a thud. A thud. I needed a punk. Yeah, but no. But those are my 3 main notes for this film.
Okay, so Paige, I was sitting on this because the guy who wrote this is a guy named Joshua John Miller.
Okay.
He actually wrote it with another guy or another person named M.A. Fortin, I think is how you pronounce the name.
Sure.
They did Final Girls.
Oh, okay.
Together, right? So like you know who that is, I suppose.
Yeah, I liked Final Girls.
But you also know who this is because his dad was Father Karras.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, that maybe explains why that part of this movie is so good.
Yes. Yeah. I wanted to bring that up. I feel like I don't know anything about the guy who played Father Karras at all, but it seems like
he was a stage actor and The Exorcist was one of his first films. Yeah.
I mean, like as it relates to his childhood vis-a-vis what is positioned as Russell Crowe's childhood in this movie, I don't know. But it seems like that part of the story is so flushed out and so real and so lived in that like, that I believed it and I loved it. And it was like, it's sort of not justified, but gave you a reason to be like, okay, he could just be drinking a lot right now because he's under a lot of stress and doing coke or meth or something, right?
Well, and grappling with something that is reminding him of a horrible part of his life that he has not processed. Yes.
And lashing out violently or whatever. Like, showing a crew's worth of people just how low he can limbo. You know what I'm saying? Like when he reacts to the director being like, did that priest not fuck any sense into you when you were 12 or whatever?
Oh my God. That's one of the most horrifying. I mean, like trigger warning for even just the line. That's one of the most horrible things I've ever heard.
I know. It was so crazy. And the fact that when he stood up and stopped acting in the scene and like walked down the same way the director walked down the set, I wanted him to just like grab the director and beat the shit out of him. Yes. But like that would have been justified, but also like, is that part of the possession? Is he even possessed? Or is he just like triggered by what's going on?
That's part of my question.
Yeah.
Because, and the movie doesn't come down either way, but even as that scene was happening and I was hearing it, I was like, that's the most fucked up thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was like, is it even being said? Or is that just how what Russell Crowe is hearing?
Paige, only because I've seen that same actor on
a number of things, like so many things.
He plays a movie producer in
all the time.
I know, it's like what he does, but what the fuck? It's the TV show on you. It's just like straight up for dudes.
Entourage.
Yes. Cut all of that, babe.
You forgot the word entourage. Anyway, go ahead. Yep.
It's not like it's a great show. But he plays like a shitty movie producer in Entourage, so I guarantee you he was just doing that. that's the way that would have gone down for sure. He's even sort of insinuating it in another scene about guilt. He's like, no, in this scene you feel guilt. And listen, Russell Crowe, the actor who left his cancer-ridden wife and daughter to go do blow and drink and chase like sex or whatever while your wife was dying. Like, you should feel guilt. So just tune into the way you should feel. I was like, good God. Like, if you can't act well after that, like, that is peak directing, right? Like, that's crazy. Such an asshole. That guy's such an asshole is what I'm trying to say.
When he starts that section, he says, what does he say? I have to look at because I wrote it down because I was like, that's a brilliant directing note. And then it devolves into being very, very personal.
Because he starts it off like, Russell Crowe's like, well, what do you need for me to like get the scene? He goes, I need you to connect. I need you to convey the meaning of the words, right?
Right. But then what he says is, the meaning of the words is stop being over it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that is a brilliant director's note, because that is literally like, this is it. It has to come out. You have to let the emotion, the bleeding out of this. You have to stop evading the truth. Does that make sense? Now, those are all great director's notes, but then he cuts back and is like, when I cast you, and then goes in personal. Now, I think there could absolutely be a reading of this movie that anytime he goes in personal like that, he's not actually saying it. It's Russell Crowe saying it to himself.
I mean, that very well could be. I don't know. I mean, just because I've seen that guy play that like Hollywood producer asshole so much, I just, like it's so real to me. Of course, that's the way all movie producers are. So I assume that that's the way this director was. But I don't know. And you could read it that way, because both times he does that or does something like that. I think it might be 3 times, but the first time's not really that bad.
Right.
But the second 2, they get progressively worse. Let's just say it that way, right?
Right.
And every time he does it, he does give him a note and start to walk and then turn around, and then he gives him the shit. Like, he goes in personal.
Right.
And maybe, I mean, you could read it that way.
The main reason I'm reading it that way, because you're right. This guy does play an amazing, like, it could just be someone being an asshole.
Yeah.
I think the performance is a little more subtle than that, because in the initial note, he is very compassionate. And then in the secondary one, after he turns around, it's always the cruelest possible thing you could say.
Yeah.
And I would say in instances, especially of somebody grappling with trauma they have not processed, that they feel guilty over, that they shouldn't because they did not do anything wrong, the cruelest comments will come from themselves. And I feel like there's a lot in the rest of the movie to suggest that Russell Crowe is the one punishing himself through a lot of this. And that could absolutely be a part of it. Now, if this movie streamlined just a little bit so that was our main story and not that he was actually possessed, I still think you could have him be actually possessed in the third act if you want. I think it's stronger if you don't. But like, if we didn't have the crazy, I'll call it Marvel exorcism at the end, if you don't have that, then it really could be him exorcising the part of him that still feels guilt over that trauma. And that would fit right in.
You know what would be a cool ending to this? The quote, exorcism is him and his daughter going to therapy together. Like, those kind of things. Like, because that's actually what's going to get him better, right? Like,
well, and I think that is, like, he goes to confession at the end, but I honestly think it's more in the sense of therapy. Yeah.
He does allude to that sort of work being done. Yes, I get that. But we got an actual exorcism that was more or less just David Hyde Priest coming in and taking in the demon, which I guess is also a reference to The Exorcist. Fine, I get it.
Sure.
Then Russell Crowe just like stands up, like name drops every angel and archangel he can, and then stabs David Hyde Pierce to death with his cross.
Yeah.
So like, how is he not in jail at the end of this movie? I didn't even think about that. Like,
thank you.
What? Hang on.
It bothers me every time. It's also one of the reasons that part of the ending really doesn't work, because he would, not only has he killed Sam Worthington, which like, boo, he was the hot one, and did great in that Mormon movie with Andrew Garfield.
It's a series.
That's right.
And it's great. Yes.
It was phenomenal. Under the Banner of Heaven. It was great.
It's about an actual murder spree, like amongst the Mormons. Yes.
So good. But so he's killed Sam Worthington, and his fingerprints are going to be everywhere.
All over the mirror, all over the eye.
Everything.
All over Sam Worthington's neck.
Everything. And he's then killed David Hyde Pierce with 2 witnesses.
Yeah.
With fingerprints everywhere. There's no way they're going to be able to clean up that crime scene. Like, he would be in prison because nobody is going to be like, oh, you say it was a demon? Great. Like, there's just no, and that's not how that works.
And you know who the police aren't going to believe? The person who stabbed David Hyde Priest to death.
Yes.
His daughter and his daughter's, I think, like girlfriend.
Yeah.
Or like lover, right?
Lover.
Acquaintance that, like, they're friends with benefits. Listen, I don't want to define their relationship, but they are like smooching. You know what I'm saying?
They're smooching.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the end really takes me out of it. I was like here for this movie until the end.
Me too.
But then I almost want, as opposed to just them going to therapy, I feel like that's kind of soft shoeing the ending. I do think you need something more dramatic to heighten the stakes. Do you remember the end of His House?
Yeah.
The one where they were refugees?
Yes.
And the end is very much, did it happen? Did it not? It doesn't matter. They have an emotional moment where they have to grapple with the truth of what they have been through. And it is difficult for them to do so. But ultimately, a lot of what we're seeing in the horrifying imagery is connected to metaphor and PTSD, and that's where it lands.
Yeah.
And like, but it's still, you still have the benefit of having those terrifying visuals to illustrate how hard that is to get through. And I think something like that would have been a better fit in this movie than what we get in the third act.
Yeah. I really did like where the movie, or I guess I really liked the themes the movie was playing with, and the stuff about like his past bubbling up and causing problems in his more recent past, because I feel like that's why he was also self-medicating and running away from the stress of his wife dying.
Right.
And also the way that fractured his daughter and his relationship, and now that he's under more stress because he's now working again, like all of that bubbling up and causing him to like spiral out, right? I really liked all of that.
Well, and stress specific to his trauma too.
He's playing his abuser.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they telegraph that when he like looks at that collar for the first time, and you're like, oof.
Yeah.
Oof, magoof.
Yeah. It's like they build all that side of the world so convincingly and so well, and it's like really grounded in reality. So like when it turns out to just be supernatural stuff, I'm like less interested. And also when they're doing the exorcism, it's not really scary anymore. And this movie, even though I liked the themes it was setting up and didn't convincingly nail, it's like Ready or Not in that sense, I really was scared by it. There are a lot of jump scares in this movie, a lot of them scared the shit out of me. Like, it's a good, scary movie that like is almost so good.
Right. Yeah, you're getting like not quite Hereditary for like the first 2 acts.
It's cool though, right? Because instead of it being a miniature, it's actually like a whole fucking set. And it's honestly, maybe I'm just a cinematographer nerd, and like,
it's shot beautifully. It's really cool.
I know, it's so great.
The lighting in this, incredible.
I know, it's so good.
But then you get to Act 3 and it's the Pope's Exorcist, and you're like, this isn't what was on the box.
Right.
Come on.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree.
But yeah,
I do think, like, not to transition us into a little bit something that's maybe a little more silly, but it sort of did also take me out of it, that she always or almost always calls him Tony and not Dad. And I get that they're trying to telegraph that they have a strange relationship, but when she's calling for him, when it's scary, like when she's scared, I don't think she'd be like, I'm mad at my dad, so I'm calling him Tony today. Like, that to me took me out of it when she was like walking around with the light. I was like, you wouldn't call him Dad? Really?
No, that didn't take me out of it at all because of some other stuff they layer in a way that they use it. Because we established that he was basically gone the whole time her mom had cancer. So she grew up, did not super know him. And then the last few years, she's been at a boarding school. They effectively don't have a relationship.
Yeah, okay.
So to her, he is Tony. But I love that because he asks her in the beginning to call him Dad, but then later to telegraph that he's possessed, it's like, it's not Tony.
Yeah.
Which I also thought it was fun that it was Tony, like the little man in Tony's not here right now. It's just, or Denny's not here right now, Mrs. Torrance. It's Tony, the man who lives in my finger.
Oh, yeah. You mean the second best movie in the Shining oeuvre of films, right?
For me, it's number 1, but whatever. I won't hear any arguments today.
I know.
Not in my special yellow jumpsuit.
I get... Paige, you are the sun. And honestly, like, I get that my take on the Shining cinematic universe is wrong, but I prefer Dr. Sleep.
Here's the thing. Dr. Sleep's not a bad movie at all.
No, it's good.
And again, there's half of that movie I love. I love the whole section on recovery.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant. It is the rest of it that does not work for me, which is a bummer because I love the other half so much. But anyway, do you want to talk about this movie?
I do, and I feel like what you just said sort of applies to this movie too, because I feel the same way about this movie on some level.
Yep.
Because I love the stuff that's grounded in reality and about like this actor's childhood bubbling up in shitty ways in his present, but that's not what the movie's ultimately about.
It needs a script pass and some editing.
Anyway, Paige, it's not my trauma, it's actual demons. That's what I learned.
It's acting.
But anyway, maybe we should just get into this movie scene by scene, Paige.
Let's do it. We open on Adrian Pastar only in this movie for 30 seconds, blocking his scenes for the following day.
Yeah.
If you've never worked on a production, this is something that you'll do stage, screen, pretty much anything that requires specific movement for lighting cues or camera cues. And that's you're basically walking through the lines and where they happen in the scene. People don't just wander around sets and conveniently end up where cameras need them. It is planned meticulously. So he is walking through. And honestly, I do love that for this movie, we only ever see these scenes. Like we see maybe 2 scenes of this, like of the fake movie within a movie, which is a remake of The Exorcist.
Yes, it is.
They never deliberately say it by name, but it is very clearly a remake of the original Exorcist.
I wondered if it was because they couldn't say it by name.
I think they couldn't.
Yeah.
I think they couldn't.
Because someone owns that. Someone owns the rights to that. So like, it did not bother me that they did not say it. I was like, I get it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Don't pay the like $20,000 you'd have to pay so you could say the name once or whatever. Like, I don't care.
Well, remember this also came out at the same time as an Exorcist sequel.
Oh, did it?
Because Exorcist Believer came out within weeks of this. So like they probably couldn't say it for that reason too. Like, but I was fine with them not explicitly saying it. But if you are not up on your Exorcist nerdery, you might not understand. The only thing they call the movie is the Georgetown Project, which of course is because The Exorcist was largely shot in and around Georgetown because it's set in DC. It's a whole thing. Anyway.
Yeah, it takes place in DC. Yeah.
He's walking through the blocking, and as we pull back from a set that looks almost identical to the bedroom in The Exorcist, and we will see 2 different versions of this set, the regular and the cold room.
Yeah.
Which it was really interesting seeing how they managed a cold room modern versus the way they would have done it originally. But as we pull back from that bedroom, it's a giant soundstage set of a house.
It's so cool.
So cool looking.
It's a great crane shot indoors, which you don't really see a lot.
Yes.
They might have also have done it with a drone and just voiced over what he was doing in that one specific shot. But a crane would be way easier in this setting.
I think it's a crane because that whole side of the house is open. It's like a slice.
Exactly.
So that they can crane in and around. And I think that must have been how they did it. Although drone would also work too. But the door slams. He hears voices. There's no one else on set because we've seen it. And the demon reveals itself. He screams, and it implies that he is thrown off the 3rd floor of the set.
Yeah.
To his death.
We hear like laughing and like giggling and like ominous sounds too. It isn't just like voices.
Right.
But yeah, it's clear that something like spooky and demonic is happening.
Which, if you're super into the will they or won't they, is it or isn't it of this movie, this cold open kind of wrecks it. Because the cold open is like, it is.
Yeah.
But if you cut it, you wouldn't know.
Yeah, I mean, we don't actually see any death happen for sure, but...
We just hear about it later.
Right. So, like, I guess there is still some ambiguity there, but it does sort of really spell out what's going on.
Yeah.
On set, at least.
Right. So we cut to, in theory, the next few days. We don't know exactly when, but soon after that happens.
Yeah.
And during the credits, we're in the cab with Lee, who is Russell Crowe's character, Tony's daughter. And she arrives at his apartment, and he is immediately like, oh, you're home. Oh, but what's with your hair? Well, we have stuff to talk about. And I loved these scenes because within very little time, we really illustrate he's trying to reconnect with her, trying to be a better father, but he doesn't know her at all. And there is a distance between them that is not repaired yet. We also find out was expelled, but is now suspended from her school. We'll find out why later, but it was a Catholic boarding school. And that's very important to remember later in the movie when we find out why she was expelled and B, why she probably doesn't want to go back.
Yeah.
We will find out later. But he's like, I can get you back in next semester. And he's rehearsing lines at the time because he's about to audition for the role that unfortunately just fell off the set. It fell off the back of the set truck and he picked it up.
Yeah.
But we cut to he goes to confession. And I assume he did this for research for the role. But he says, it's been 40 years. I had a drinking problem and that turned into a drug problem. And I ruined my life and my family. My wife got sick. I used it as an excuse.
Yeah.
And I now have the potential to get a job off someone else's tragedy, but maybe it's a chance for me to truly start over. And I'm hoping that it goes well. We never hear the priest respond to him. In fact, we don't even know if he actually went anywhere. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. We cut back to the apartment.
Yeah.
And his daughter is trying to help him with lines. And he's like, why don't you write anything? And she's like, well, I sent you the last script I wrote. So in theory, she wants to be a writer, probably. She grew up the child of a movie star, but like this is, what she wants.
I mean, that sort of is the director's story on some level. I mean, like, or the writer director of this movie,
I was actually kind of curious about that, but this is the part that's so fleshed out that I'm like,
I know. This is the part that feels so real. Like even when he's talking to the quote priest, we never hear him speak back, but the confession booth scene, like that's a great way to get some exposition across.
Yes.
But not make it seem like we're like name dropping or like, oh, okay, I have to remember all this for later. Like
right.
It like everything made sense. It tracked and it was super grounded in reality. I loved it.
Right. We find out that he has been on an antidepressant and he spent the last year in rehab.
Yeah, he was on fluoxetine.
Which I did look up and it is an antidepressant.
It is. Yes, it is.
But antidepressants can cause any number of side effects, especially when you're first starting to take them. And we do establish that he's only been on it for a couple days. So you could very easily have this movie be he is having a reaction. It is him grappling with it. But we never come down one way or the other on that. And he does stop taking them at some point, which can also cause side effects, by the way, if you just suddenly stop taking an antidepressant.
I mean, he becomes a real demon after he stops taking it almost immediately. So, yeah.
There you go.
Side effects may include Baphomet.
Or Moloch or Valak. Anyway, so she runs lines with him and they do kind of start to connect, which I think is very important to establish in their relationship of like, it is strained. He feels a lot of guilt. He feels like he's not doing well. She probably still harbors some resentment against him, but also is like, you're the only parent I have. Let's try and work things out. And I think this is her kind of extending the olive branch. She wants him to do well. She definitely does.
Yeah.
But we cut to the audition and he actually, I think, is actually doing pretty well in this audition. And it's that scene that we kind of see over and over again. I think this is the best we see it.
Yeah.
Is here.
Yeah, I mean, he is still stumbling over the words some, and I feel like they're trying to make it seem like, okay, he's not at the top of his game.
Right.
Right? And he's walking this, like, interesting ground. Like, I mean, like, Russell Crowe, the actor in this scene, is, like, walking an interesting ground because he is a great actor. Like, Russell Crowe, the actor, is a great actor. And he's having to act, not like a bad actor, but like a good actor on a bad day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like an actor with the yips or something, you know? It's like this weird like lane to walk, but I think he's doing a great job of it in the scene because I do see like, oh, this guy's probably really good.
Yeah.
On a good day.
On a good day. And I do love that the director pulls him aside and is like, let's just talk for a bit. And he thinks that means he's blowing the audition.
Yeah.
But in this scene, as the director's talking to him and asking him about his relationship with religion and bringing up the altar boy stuff and a couple other things.
Yeah.
I feel like at least it reveals to us, the audience, of like, oh, here's why you would choose that guy. Because all of that is under the surface.
Yeah.
And if you can get him to infuse the performance with that, this will be truly fantastic.
I mean, it almost might be the perfect role for him to play based on his previous childhood trauma. And I know that is like not ideal, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, had he actually connected to the source material and like overlaid his guilt in those scenes or whatever, like that director would have gotten amazing performances out of him. But we don't see that in the movie.
I even think that for his current thing that he feels guilty about, for an audience to see someone who has had a rough time who then comes back and delivers a great performance, that's Robert Downey Jr. Like that, people love that. People love to see a comeback. I have heard that Pam Anderson's new movie is incredible and I can't wait to go see it. But people are like, yeah, it's because it's her. that she's bringing that to that performance. I feel the same about Demi Moore in The Substance.
Yeah.
Her gravitas in that performance makes it more impactful. And that's what would happen here. And he brings up all of it. And he even is like, do you think you can do this? And he's like, I think I could be good.
Yeah.
I think I can be. I don't come if I don't think the role is right, but I think I can do it. I think I could give it a shot. And we even hear him say, like, I want my daughter to be proud of me again.
Yeah.
Like, give me a chance.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
It is. It really is. But it is very much from the place of like this guy who knows he has royally fucked up beyond repair. Like
Right.
he is going to do whatever he can for the rest of his life to make it right to his daughter, who may not ever forgive him. And that is understandable because of how terrible he's been.
Sure.
And like, I love that he is like operating from that place when this movie starts. I thought that was like a really cool place to pick up a character.
Right.
And to see like this great redemption arc that we kind of get.
And we almost get.
Yeah.
I know, like, so close.
I mean, by the end of this movie, they are repairing the relationship.
Sure.
In the post-log, sort of, we get that. But we don't really get that on screen. And nor does he really address any of the trauma or what
Right.
caused him to maybe self-medicate and leave last time he was going through stress with his wife
Right.
when she had cancer. So, like, none of that's ever resolved for me. That's, like, the one note I have.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah.
But he does get the role and he shows up and everyone's like, hey, I heard your audition's great. And he meets essentially Father George Connor, who's David Hyde Pierce.
Yeah, David Hyde Priest, Paige, please. David Hyde Priest.
David Hyde Priest, who is there as a consultant on set. And he does later say, he's like, I'm just here so people get less paranoid.
Yeah.
Because like, he's like, everyone thinks it's haunted and possessed. And I'm just here so that people stop freaking out. And then ultimately has to be there for the actual exorcism later. But we also see him talking to Sam Worthington, right? The actor.
He plays Joe in the movie, but yeah, that's the actor who plays him. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. I was making sure I got the name right.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were thirsting over him a second ago. I thought you remember. I thought you were joking.
know.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
No, sorry. I was like, that is his last name.
Yeah.
You know how sometimes you say a word so many times it loses meaning? It was that.
That once happened to me with the word thighs. I forgot what it meant.
It happens. So he's talking to Sam Worthington, and Sam Worthington is like, man, when you were an action hero, it was incredible. I loved it. And he's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that movie was when I was getting loaded in my trailer. And they're all at kind of like a party at his house. Now, we also know that he had a problem with alcohol.
Yeah.
He had been in rehab, but there is booze all over this party.
Yeah.
So that's our clue that something is about to probably go wrong. But his daughter goes into her bedroom, and who does she find there but Chloe Bailey, a.k.a. Blake, sitting on her phone. And she is the younger, she's playing like the Reagan in this Exorcist movie, and she is a younger TV star from Vampire Sorority. And if you think I wouldn't have watched Vampire Sorority, like, put it in my veins.
Oh, you mean what I'm assuming is just Vampire Diaries for this universe? You know? Yeah.
Probably, which I didn't watch Vampire Diaries. I was never a Vampire Diaries person, but I was already too old when it came out. And, you know, it was my True Blood era.
I mean, you definitely would have been a Vampire Diaries girl if you were like 10 years younger.
If I was younger. If I was like 10 years younger. But this is when we find out that her dad got her a job as a PA, which, by the way, a lot of famous people's kids' first job is PA.
Yeah, a lot of Nepo babies come up through the parent actor IPA on set until I meet enough people to start getting acting work myself.
Yes, but also being a PA is thankless and awful. And so it is one of those things where, like, if you're like, oh, somebody's a director now, Nepo baby, I do want you to remember how many people screamed at them over cups of coffee on their way up, because it did happen to them like everyone else. Did they get the job to get screamed at and get coffee a lot easier than everyone? Yes.
Yeah.
But they still got screamed at. It was not all sunshines and roses.
They definitely jumped the line to get screamed at over coffee. Yes.
Yeah. Because I was a PA one time. It's not fun.
Yeah.
This is not fun.
I'm sure not.
Oh, no. But you got to do it once or more than once, multiple times. Anywho, so that's how she ends up on the set. But so she and it seems like Chloe Bailey are roughly the same age, give or take. And so they kind of become friends on set. But this is where in the bedroom, in this party, she basically reveals that she got kicked out of school. And she says for being too cool. We're going to come back to that later.
Yeah.
We cut to shoot day 1. Everyone is getting ready. Everyone's in position. And they do like a little tour of the set. So we see the cold room, the main set. We see Chloe Bailey be like, oh yeah, that's where that guy died, but it didn't have anything to do with the movie. And she's like, if you say so. She's getting saged by another PA.
I loved that.
Which is great.
I thought it was so funny. And they're like, what's going on with the sage? And she's like, weird shit happens on the sets of these haunting movies all the time, and I ain't taking no chances. The last guy who played your dad role died on set. So like, I'm not taking any chances.
Yes, exactly. And I think it also ties into everyone thinks that The Exorcist is cursed. Right? Everyone thinks The Omen is cursed. Every movie she references in that line are the cursed movies. And I think it's a very interesting way to play, okay, it's a remake. Is the remake cursed or is it his PTSD? Like, is it all the things that your paranoid mind wants to think of, or is it unresolved PTSD? And that is such a clean through line.
I know.
That I think it just gets bookended a little wrong. And if you chopped 2 of these scenes out, it'd be good.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I honestly wanted the theme of the movie to be sometimes not dealing with unresolved trauma can lead you to do bad things, and not, sometimes, horror movie sets be haunted sometimes.
right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I feel like that's the stronger movie, but they went with,
I agree.
I don't know, man, horror movie sets be haunted sometimes. So like, you got to watch out.
Well, and it kind of a little bit overshadows some of what we're getting in this scene, because when he met David Hyde Priest and he stares at that collar for a long time. And then in this scene, he puts on his costume for the first time and gets mic'd up and stares at that collar in the mirror.
Yeah.
That for us, and he gets like a little teeny bit of a flashback at that point, because David Hyde Priest walks up and is like, oh, hey, you look great. And he's like, yeah, I never thought I would see this. And he asks, he's like, why'd you become a priest? He's like, all my heroes were priests. And he looks back in the mirror and you realize it's like all of his villains were priests.
Yeah.
Like, you just know.
Or at least one specific priest. Yeah.
Yeah, at least one. And I did have a question at the end if David Hyde Priest was that priest, but I was like, they're too close in age.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they were too close in age. Even if David Hyde Priest was like 10 years older, I don't think it's the same. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't line up. But it is literally someone looking into the mirror dressed as their abuser.
Yeah.
100%.
So it makes sense that he might be a little triggered by like staring at the priest in the mirror.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I wouldn't want to do that either.
This is going to sound like a really dumb comparison. I promise I have a point. I promise.
Okay.
In Outlander.
Oh, no. Oh, wow. Okay. I cannot wait to see how you get there.
Hear me out. They are in America now during the Revolutionary War.
What? Okay.
And at one point, Jamie is conscripted to fight for the British. And there is a huge moment of him being really conflicted about wearing a red coat when the red coats were the ones that put him in prison and killed most of his family.
Right. Yeah, I would too.
Yes. And it's very much the same feeling of wearing the coat of your abuser, wearing the collar of your abuser, and how much that really impacts and messes with a person.
Yeah.
So see, it made sense. You know what? But that's what we're getting in this scene.
Yeah.
And we do get the flashback of the cup and the crucifix. I do love how this movie treats those flashbacks. There is nothing necessarily sexually explicit or even suggestive necessarily in those flashbacks, but the stuff you see tells you what you need to know.
Yes.
And I really appreciated that. But he comes back in the flashback and his nose is bleeding. And I was like, ooh.
I mean, he's struggling with it. Like, we saw what he was thinking about.
Yes.
And it's like, it's trauma. We don't see anything like graphic, but it's like heavily insinuated.
Right. But we cut to the scene that they blocked earlier where he comes to the door. So for the rest of the movie, we're kind of moving through the scene that the first guy in the cold open was blocking through. We cut to the end of the day where back in their apartment, townhouse, whatever, brownstone, whatever it is, his daughter is on Blake, Chloe's Instagram.
Yeah.
And I think she accidentally clicks like.
Yeah.
Like while scrolling through an old photo. And I was like, so relatable.
You can just unlike it. It's fine.
But they get the notification either way. So if it's somebody super famous, it doesn't matter because it'll get buried. But if it's just a regular ass person and they're only getting a couple notifications a day,
you're in trouble.
You in trouble. You in trouble. Anyway, she hears a thud. She goes to investigate, and her dad's door is locked. She kind of goes down the hall to the other room and then listens down the staircase into, she calls it the lobby. So they must be in some sort of like older apartment building or something.
Who knows?
It's not super clear.
But it's like they are definitely financially fine. Like I get the impression that he's like the level of movie star that like he could have retired years ago kind of a thing.
Right.
But so like I don't know. I thought they might own the whole building and maybe they just lived on the top floor.
That was my thinking.
Of it. You know, that was like their home, but the rest of it was like maybe they were renovating. I don't know. But she does go down into the lobby. Man, a lot of these scares.
This is a really scary, yes.
There was also one where he was like catatonic earlier, where it's like, boom, it's like right in your face. It scared the shit out of me.
This
one scares me too. Oh, sorry.
No, that's later. This is the one.
I might be ahead. Yeah. Okay.
You are the head.
Yeah.
Because the door is locked. She kind of goes through. He seems to be like catatonic in a trance and snaps out of it.
Yes.
And and with his eyes rolling back and everything. And she's like, you were sleepwalking. You're stressed, I think.
Yeah.
Which like, you could have someone sleepwalking and stressed and have it be as scary.
Of course. He's also on new medication. Like
New medication.
Tons of things it could be outside of demonic possession.
Yeah, a whole bunch of shit. But shoot day 2. And this is where he's trying to do there's no monster in you. It sees your sins and mine. It sighs with my father's voice. I left him to die. And he's like not getting it. And this is where we get I need the meaning of the line. And it's stop being over it. Stop evading the truth. Be honest about the fact that you're not over it.
Yeah.
And then he has a great note, but he starts again. He doesn't do it well. Cut. And then we get the really horrific one of like, when I cast you, you said you could be good and I believed you. So do the heavy lifting and connect. You are this guy. You're eaten alive by guilt. You're the sack of shit who left a kid and a wife to go drink and chase pussy. You're irredeemable. You hear me? And for me, I'm like, that's the internal monologue. That's what he says to himself.
I mean, maybe.
And like, it's being voiced through this director.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's brutal to hear. Yeah.
In the scene, it is displayed as him playing it, and it is brutal to hear. And we also see that his daughter, Lee, is there overhearing it.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, and she has a headset the whole time, so she overhears everything on set.
She hears the whole thing. Yeah. But as he walks away, a light falls and literally almost murders him.
The director, not Russell Crowe.
Yeah, the director, not Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
Could be an accident. Could be.
Maybe it's demonic.
Evil, like the fruits of the devil.
I do love that, like, the director immediately starts yelling at, like, I don't know, probably an assistant on some level.
Oh, no, that was the second AD, Monica. We met her a couple scenes ago.
That's right.
Which that's also not her job.
She even says, fuck you, Peter, who's the director. And then like, give me an electrician.
Well, she's like, I didn't hang the damn lights. I was like, no, of course not. That's a gaffer's job.
Of course. And they're in a union.
They
so
are.
like, of course you didn't hang the lights.
Yeah, of course not.
I want you to pay attention because this is important. Getting in shape and losing weight can literally be a life or death decision. Heart disease, diabetes, even cancer. Your lifestyle decisions dictate your health. Maybe you think you can't do it, but I know you can. If you have 3 key components. 1, you need a specific day-by-day fitness plan that's already proven to work so you won't quit. 2, a healthy nutrition plan that's integrated into your fitness plan that's easy to follow. And 3, support from a community all pulling for each other's success. I'm Carl, the CEO of Body. That's Body with an I. Body helps people achieve their goals with these 3 factors. That's where the magic happens. Body has the programs that are proven to help you lose up to 10 to 15 pounds in just 3 weeks, 30 to 40 pounds in 90 days. You just need to commit. This is so important for you. Go to body.com, that's BODI.com, and we'll get you the fast results you want step by step.
Rakuten is the smartest way to save money when you shop because you earn cash back at over 3,500 stores. Fashion, beauty, electronics, home essentials, travel, dining, concert tickets, and more. Your favorite stores like Lowe's, Levi's, and Nike pay Rakuten to send them shoppers. And Rakuten then passes on a part of that payment to its members as cash back. You're already shopping at your favorite stores. Why not save while you're doing it? It's a no-brainer. Membership is free and easy to sign up. Get the Rakuten app now and join the 17 million members who are already saving. Cashback rates change daily. See Rakuten.com for details. That's Rakuten. Your cashback really adds up.
Anyway, we cut to Russell Crowe trying to review script notes, and he finds the crucifix in the drawer and ends up drinking while he's reviewing his script notes. Now, as he goes through, the notes seemed more and more unhinged with notes and scribbles ever that he doesn't remember doing. And one says, you will not be saved.
Yeah.
And he doesn't seem to remember. I was like, ooh, fugue state. Great. Love it. But then we immediately cut to, he like comes to and he's in his daughter's room. How did he even get there? He doesn't know. But he was looking at the script in one place and then in another place. Lost time.
Yeah. It's almost like sometimes you black out when you drink a ton.
Yeah. Or you enter a fugue state because of your medication and sleepwalking and you've sleepwalked there. Like,
yeah.
There's a lot of explanations.
Or sometimes horror movie sets just be haunted sometimes, guys.
Sometimes. Anyway, he's trying to learn, along with his daughter, the list of the saints and angels and archangels that they're going to call upon during the exorcism scene. And he says to her, I have to know it and perform it as if this is a core belief of this person. He believes them so much and believes that this is what will get him out of it. Now, I kind of, in the end, when this is the thing that kind of pulls them out, I kind of hated that because I would have loved for him to still not remember it in the end. And in the end to just be, please leave. I don't remember any of this. All I can talk to you from is me and my story and the emotional core of me. And that has nothing to do with any of these saints or archangels or any name I could call upon. I have to ask you this in the name of saving me. Like,
yeah,
that would have been way more powerful.
Almost like my best friend's exorcism, but on yourself.
Yeah, exactly. But he stands up too fast and gets dizzy and is like, no, I'm fine. Yeah, go to bed, get some rest. It's fine. But as she's getting ready for bed, she like sees him in the hallway.
That's
and then
so
passes
creepy.
and then he's gone. And then one of his shoes is there.
It's so creepy. I knew I was fucked when he was like, when she walked by and he was in the doorway, but not moving through it. He was standing still in the doorway.
Right.
And then she walks back and he's like gone. I thought he was going to like pop out of nowhere and like attack her or something. It's not as scary as that, but it's still really scary. This movie has a bunch of scares.
See, I actually think it's scarier than something popping out, because something popping out is always cheap. What was scarier to me that this movie did a bunch, and I think they actually did it really well, is just to have someone move locations.
Yeah. Just be somewhere they're not expected.
Yes. And somewhere far enough away that they could not have done it in the time that you turn around. So like, because at one point she's like, stay right there. And the camera follows as she turns her head and then turns back and he's gone, but he's just sitting calmly further out in the scene.
Right.
And he could not have moved that fast. Like,
it's crazy.
It's so good. But they do that a lot here.
You're like, is Martin Short, Chevy Chase, and Steve Martin in a Russell Crowe outfit?
Yes.
And they're just running around this apartment freaking me out?
Because it's like you turn and someone's sitting like they've been like fully sat down, had time to like rest into a sitting position.
Yeah, it's really creepy. I get why that worked in Three Amigos.
It's really creepy. Yeah. Anyway, he goes down the staircase and she can hear him, but can't see him. He's somewhere down at the bottom, but she can hear him praying in Latin.
Yeah, she records it on her phone.
Yeah.
This comes back later when she's talking to David Hyde Priest and like her girlfriend, the Reagan of the new remake.
Blake,
thank you. Yes.
And she drops the phone and goes all the way down the stairs, and he's like naked and peeing and the lights are flickering on and off. And then he's like right there in front of her face, eyes rolling back, whole thing. And then lights flicker and he's then at the top of the stairs.
Yeah. Like looking down at her.
Yes. And then he's gone. And she's like, what the fuck? We cut to him in the shower.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're taking your new meds, right? Like, what did I just see, basically?
Right.
And there's like a weird black spider webby thing kind of on his shoulder.
Yeah. Which we have sort of seen his eyes go dark when he sort of gets possessed by...
and it gets darker as the movie goes on, too.
It does. Yeah. It becomes more pronounced. But like when she walks in and sees her dad peeing, like I would have screamed the exact same way if I had opened the bathroom door and seen my dad peeing. I'd have been like, ah, sorry.
Well, especially peeing on the floor too. You're like, no, that's not where that goes. Like, no.
Yeah. I mean, he was peeing on the floor, but I mean, there's like, if I had walked in the bathroom and walked in on anybody peeing, I'd have been like, oh my God. And then I would have run out of there.
Yeah. Not like, hey, you need any help with that? Like, no, just, run it. It depends on who's peeing.
I mean, okay, but like, if I'm seeing someone standing to pee, I probably am not interested in helping them.
That's fair.
Well, I'm not interested in helping anybody peeing. Like, finish peeing.
Finish. Yeah. I mean, I also, for me, because we've established it's the lobby, it's not a bathroom. It's also a like, no, I'm going to have to clean that up. But it seems like a very sleepwalky thing.
Yeah.
To pee somewhere where you're not supposed to. But then to be like, oh no, this is, and he's night crawling around the building, just like.
Paige, I'm not going to say who this was because it's a little bit of an embarrassing story. But I have seen people just being blackout drunk.
Oh, yeah.
Peeing in weird places in public and stuff.
Sure.
I once had to stop Pete's wife from peeing on a cop car.
Oh, that's right, huh?
The cops were in it, by the way.
Oh, no, never mind.
I mean, it was late at night. We had been bar hopping. This is like in my younger days. But like, yeah, I've seen people do things that you're like, oh, well, that's dumb. Why would he pee in a lobby? I mean, that's honestly, I could see a drunk person doing that.
I'm sure it happens all the time.
But honestly, he does it because horror movie sets just be haunted sometimes, guys.
They just be haunted sometimes.
Yeah.
I thankfully have never peed in a weird place while drunk. That was not one of my drunk experiences.
I thought you were going to say I've never peed, full stop.
I've never peed. It's like Mikey doesn't fart. I don't pee.
Well, you don't have the balls to store it, Paige. That's the problem.
I know. That's the problem. Anyway, I pee. I pee all the time.
Let's start this rumor. I like it.
Anyway, I have 20 toes and I cannot pee.
Oh my God. It's too many toes.
It's too many.
Sorry.
We cut to shooting day 11 and they're watching the dailies and they're like, it looks like he's relapsed. He's drunk. He looks like hell. They're like, we could add more concealer, but like, I can't watch. It's not working. He's like not able to do the job because he is seemingly too drunk. But as they're saying all this, she's there. She's the PA. She's hearing them talk about her own dad this way.
Yeah.
It's pretty brutal. And she's the last one to leave the screening room. And David Hyde Priest stays behind. And he's like,
thank you.
Hey, this must be tough for you.
Yeah.
Because of this.
He's like, I don't suppose it's easy being a Nepo baby. And I really like what she says in response to that because she's like, actually, there's a lot of perks to being an actor's kid. It's the addiction that's hard.
It's hard.
And I thought that was making a very nuanced point that like, actually, I'm very privileged. But managing my father's addiction has been difficult.
It has been difficult.
I thought that was a cool thing to acknowledge in this movie, but David Hyde Priest is then like, I can definitely tell you've had like a rough go of it, more or less, because of that. And then they start to talk about it, and she's like, so do you believe in like the exorcism side of things? And he's like, not really, no. I mean, he's like, I don't believe in 99% of any of that, And like that's what you want. Like that's the Dr. Karras of it all, or not Dr. Karras, sorry.
Right, Father Karras.
Father Karras of it all from Exorcist, which I think you need a priest like that who is like, this can't be real, right? Because we need like the end to like, oh my God, it actually is real.
Right.
And I think The Exorcist actually plays like a really good balance of it. Because you've got Max von Sydow who was like the demon hunter priest. And we rarely get him. The majority of the movie, it's just Father Karras who's like, nah, this is just like, she's going through puberty or whatever. There are explainable things, right? And I do like that David Hyde Priest plays that part in this movie where he's like, no, it's like a mental health thing. He clearly had some trauma growing up that he has not yet addressed.
Right.
And it's coming out sideways because he is like taking on the frock of his abuser, Right.
Well, and I really liked Father Karras is my favorite character of The Exorcist. I feel like he's the most relatable, the most understandable.
Yeah.
And it's a very smart choice to have someone like that in an exorcism movie because it is your audience's entry point. And I do think David Hyde Priest is doing a very good modernization of that here.
Yes.
But then we cut to Russell Crowe drinking a lot.
He's got like, I don't drink, so forgive me, but like a handle of scotch or like Jack Daniels or whatever.
No, it's Jack Daniels. It's bourbon. But he starts with a beer and then ends up drinking, like, it's not a handle. It's a fist.
It's a lot, though.
It's a lot.
And not out of a glass. Like, he is
out of the bottle.
Got it in his fist like he's about to shove a rag in it, light the other side, and start a class war. But no, he is just drinking it straight from the bottle.
Well, and here's the thing. If you're a seasoned drinker, if you've been drinking a long time, you can do that. But it means that your body is at a point where it has such a tolerance you in trouble. It's, as Whoopi Goldberg said in Ghost, you in danger, child. Like, it's not good.
In a movie where glass goes through Sam Worthington's eye, you bring up Ghost. That's how they killed the bad guys in Ghost, Paige.
That's right. And you know what? The handle, you take it with you.
Up to heaven.
As long as it's in a paper bag.
Honestly, you can bribe St. Peter with a handle of Jack. I've heard that from, I live close to the distillery here in Nashville, Paige.
Here's the thing. I did like me some Jack. I was always more of a bullet lady.
Bullet bourbon? I've heard great things about bullet bourbon. Yeah. I don't know anything about alcohol because I've never had it, but yeah.
Yeah. Bullet bourbon and Hendrick's gin. Anyway, so we cut to his daughter on kind of like a fun little date with Blake where she's like, tell me about your mom. And she's like, she was kind of like a sister. She was messy and fun. And that was kind of the parent she connected with. And nothing's felt normal since she's not here anymore. And she does say, I wish he had died instead of her. Does that make me a horrible person? And I'm going to say, no, that's a real and valid feeling.
Yeah.
You might not want to say it to his face, but I understand feeling that. And I think there's a lot of people that feel that kind of a feeling a lot of the time.
I definitely think she needs to say it to his face, but in the right context.
Sure.
And just be like, in a group therapy session, be like, hey, there have been times in my life where I wished it was you that died and not mom.
Right.
Here's why. Let's process through that together.
Sure.
Because like, I do feel like some healing needs to be done between the two of them. But yeah, that's not something you want to yell in anger and then never talk to him again, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's all about context, but I understand what you're saying and you're not wrong.
If you're going to say it to someone's face, you want to say it with a dose of love that is like,
yes,
these are the things that I missed out on having a certain parent in this way. And I have always regretted that she was not here and you were, and you did not know how to be a part of my life in that way in that time.
Yeah.
But anyway, it is heavily implied because they get back to Blake's house and she's like, do you want to come inside? So it's implied that they go inside, hook up, whatever.
Okay, but she says, do you want to come inside? But you can see in her eyes what she actually means is, do you want to come inside?
Yeah, as opposed to on the sidewalk. Yeah,
exactly, Paige. Yeah, I was like, oh, they definitely hooked up. It's so obvious that you don't even need it because it cuts to Lee getting home. Like afterwards.
Right. Yeah. We don't even see the scene itself. She comes home afterwards.
That's how convincing the line delivery is, though. That's all I'm saying. Like, you like, oh, they definitely hooked up. Cool. Great.
Great. But we cut to, she comes home and he's sitting in her room and his hands are messed up and he's covered in blood. We never really find out what happened to his hands. I almost wish they had shifted this so it was after he killed Sam Worthington and then the hands were from punching through the mirror, but then that wouldn't make sense timeline wise. But there's something, he's covered in blood. No one knows how, why. There's like a scene missing. Did he punch a mirror? I don't know.
His hands also look a little puffy. Like they don't
from
look
drinking.
like Russell Crowe's hand. Yeah, exactly. Like and we've seen his hands a bunch in the movie. Like we're 40, 50, 60 minutes into it at this point. And so like, you're like, oh, what's going on? Like, and it's from the alcohol.
It's from the alcohol. That is a thing that will happen. It will make your hands puffy, especially if you have blood pressure issues. It will definitely make your hands puffy. But he turns on her and just says, I still see everything I ever did wrong, and I don't sleep because when I do, I see her. And she says, look, if you want to fuck all of this up again, that's fine, but I am not going to stay for it. Like, I can't stay with you. And this is where it seems like the demon takes over because he's like, you don't have a school, you don't have a mother, all you have is me. And he like goes to leave and she just says, get the fuck out, Tony. And he says, my name's not Tony. And for me, this is a sign of like, oh, we're not dealing with Tony. We're dealing with whatever else.
Yeah, it's Pazuzu or whatever. Like
it's Moloch or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But shoot day 15, we cut to his trailer and she's standing outside like dreading going in. But she comes in, she delivers the scripts and he looks terrible. This is hard alcoholism in the span of 2 weeks. It looks real bad.
Yeah.
Because if you are a really heavy drinker, and this is one of those things that like, until you stop drinking, people don't notice it in themselves really until they see the change. Your skin does start to change color. Like if it's really bad, you'll start to look yellow. That's how you know you're like cirrhosis of the liver.
They talk a little bit about that in the scene where they're watching the dailies.
Yeah, we're like, we'll put more concealer on him.
Yeah.
But even before you get to the yellow, your skin will start to look kind of gray and it's real bad. And it's one of those things where like, when you see people stop drinking and then you see them like 2 or 3 months later after they have continued to be sober, one of their first things to clear up is their skin. But he looks rough in this scene, and she's trying to like bandage his hands, and she's like, you've got to see a doctor. Like, this is not good. And he's like, no, I'm fine, but you need to go back to school. You shouldn't have to take care of me. I don't even remember what happened the other night. I'm your dad, and I need you to be safe, so I need you to go back to school.
Yeah.
And we cut to she and Blake go to David Hyde Priest, and they're like, he's off his meds. He's acting erratically. He's sleepwalking when he's awake. And I love that David Hyde Priest's first response is, hey, this makes a lot of sense. I have heard some rumors and I had some suspicions that something happened to him when he was much younger in regards to the Catholic Church and his experience with religion as a child. Do you think that he is too close to this movie and it is not healthy for him to be working on it? It is digging up trauma that he is not processing or handling well. And she confirms, she's like, my mom always said some messed up stuff happened to him. We don't elaborate anymore.
It's clear she doesn't know what it is, though.
She doesn't know.
But, like, of course, the mom probably doesn't fully know either.
Yeah.
And obviously wouldn't tell that to a child, right? Like,
right.
And like, the mom's dead, so it would have had to happen when she was much younger. You know, like, that conversation was not ready at that point. Yeah.
No, but she does play the recording that she has of the Latin.
Yes. Well, because she's like, I think my dad's possessed.
Right.
And he's like, I think it's not that. I think it's because he's got some unresolved trauma. And she's like, oh, yes, there is that too. So it's like this up in the air, right?
Right. But he translates the Latin. He's like, oh, it's for the demon Moloch. It's whatever. And he's like, oh, it's from the movie. Like, it's just from the movie. This is clearly, it's affecting him. I need to talk to him.
Yeah.
If everyone who came to me and claimed to be possessed was possessed, I'd be on a beach somewhere. Most of the time it's mental illness.
Yeah.
Which I love. I love in this movie.
It's what Father Karras would do. It's a real Father Karras kind of move.
Right. Meanwhile, though, he goes home and opens a book and looks it up, and it is a real demon.
Yeah.
Basically implying that the movie used a real one, and maybe that's the problem.
Because sometimes sets be haunted, guys, apparently.
Sometimes sets be haunted.
I do love that there's a metronome in David Hyde Priest's office, and it starts on its own, which scared me because I'm an idiot.
A drummer.
There's no... Rude. Paige, no. I have very good tempo. But there was no musical instrument in that room. So I think the scary part to David Hyde Priest is that there was a metronome in there to begin with. Because why was it in there?
Oh, it's recontextualizing therapy, where they put on a metronome for that a lot of the time.
Okay. I've never done that in therapy. But okay, I didn't realize they used metronomes like this in therapy.
They do, and often they use it for... Sometimes they use it for ADHD, and it either works or aggressively do not work. And I am the person it do not work for. But I remember Mikey and I talked about this one time because a therapist tried to do it with Mikey, and not someone he was in therapy with. A therapist he was working alongside was like, oh, has no one ever tried the metronome thing for you for ADHD? And it, like, either the sound of the metronome drowns out thought and you can't function, which is me, or it allows people to just have that in the background while they contextualize other thoughts.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I think it's just the specific sound of the metronome, because if you just put on an episode of Law & Order SVU in the background and are like, tell me about high school, I'd be like, great, so I was fat, and it'd be fine. But like, it's the white noise for people who have executive function disorders.
For me, white noise is TV. Like, I will literally, while I'm working, like, getting the most done in my day, like the most productive I ever am, is when I'm watching like Community on my iPad next to me and not really paying attention.
Yeah.
And just hammering out whatever I need to hammer out, right? I remember, like, I used to play with a metronome a lot when I first started drumming, and like, I could really lock into that. My brain really enjoyed that. I remember, like, and I think internalizing that as much as I did gave me that good tempo. And like, we didn't play to a click on the road, which is like crazy for most bands.
Yeah.
Because we didn't need to.
Right. For me, like, it is not uncommon for me to have something on, usually like Law and Order or something, and for me to be sitting and working on something, seemingly focusing on the thing I'm working on, and then to just go, the husband did it. Like, because I am paying attention to both.
Yeah, I'll do the same thing. I'll be watching something I've seen 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And like, it'll be like, I'll be like second screening The Office while working. And then when like, anytime Michael Scott starts singing Happy Birthday, I'm like nailing those high notes with him because I know what he's doing. But like, I don't really have to pay attention. You know, I don't like to watch something I haven't watched while I'm working. It has to be something I've seen before.
No, here's what's wild. A new episode of Law & Order I haven't seen.
Oh,
Like where I'm like solving the case and crocheting and also in a meeting.
yeah. It's weird to have ADHD, guys. And it's not like, we're not bragging. Like, these are struggles we have to work through.
So work corner, because this is not a very long episode.
There's not a whole lot to the movie, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. The company I work for has teams in multiple different time zones.
Yeah, same.
As we've been trying to get things done this week, I have had to work in Eastern Standard Time for part of the day and then Pacific Standard Time for the rest of the day. And it had gotten to a point where I had drafted an email that was like, hello, I have never had to ask for an accommodation before. However, with my ADHD, I cannot keep going to 7 a.m. meetings. I will lose my fucking shit. And then we are off for 2 weeks. So I at least have 2 weeks to calm down. But it was literally like it got to a point where I was like, I cannot process any new information.
Yeah.
You have disrupted my schedule so much. I cannot do anything. ADHD is fun sometimes. Fucking 7 a.m. meetings. Damn you East Coasters.
I usually start my day at like 5:30. Not my work day, but I'm up early. So like that never bothers me.
I can't. I'm not an early person. My mom immediately retired and then went back to school to study sleep studies. And turns out there are different people with different circadian rhythms.
Of
And my
course.
mom was like, oh, this is you.
Yeah.
She's like, you're a 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. person. I was like, oh, if everyone only expected me to be awake from 10 a.m. to 2 a.m., I'd be firing on all cylinders. But y'all want me up around 6, and I can't. I can't with that shit. I am not fully here until 10. Doesn't matter when I go to bed. It's also because I won't fall asleep before like 1:30. My body just don't do it.
Yeah, I struggle to fall asleep until like at least midnight, and then I get up at 5 every day. So I'm like rocking 5 hours of sleep on the regular.
Not good for you, man. Not good.
It's terrible for me. Are you kidding? But
It's terrible.
I can't really dig into it. We got to move on.
We got to move on. Anyway, we get a bigger, longer flashback that is basically like, yeah, it's exactly as bad as you thought it was. And you're like, yeah.
But it's like you see like a altar boy age guy walk into like this back room and like get like force-fed wine, I assume.
Yes.
And it's like this whole like...
It's bad.
It seems like the abuse was ritualistically planned.
Yes.
And like...
tied in with it.
Yeah, in order to cover up for it, they were probably making it seem like it was like a ritual that like has to be done or whatever. It's like really, really gross. I hated it.
It's really messed up. But then we cut to shoot day 18.
Yeah.
He is trying to do the exorcism scene and he can't do it. He keeps coughing. He can't say the words and he struggles to hold the crucifix. And this is when the director's like, say the fucking words, and then says a horrible sentence I won't repeat that you said earlier, but I still don't feel comfortable repeating.
It's terrible. It is the worst thing someone says in this movie by far.
By far.
But so like the director says that and then walks down the stairs because it's on the 3rd floor of the set. And then you just see Russell Crowe like put the Bible and the cross down on the bed. He like breathes out and then you just see him start walking down the same steps. I really thought Russell Crowe was going to catch up to him and beat the shit out of that director.
I thought he was going to beat him to death and I was going to be like, good.
I know. I was happy about it. But instead he does like the limbo challenge or whatever and like breaks his back and then goes and sits at the table and like is smashing his head into the table. And I really, as he's doing that, needed the director like at the end of it to be like, or like you hear in the background as it's like fading scenes, like an echoing sound of the director being like, are we rolling?
Yes. Can we get that again?
Yeah. That was amazing. Yeah, like finally, something like that.
Well, because he walks down and he just like stares up and then he literally back bends. Right. So he does he does what looks like the last exorcism backbend.
Yes, but it's definitely not real. Like,
It's definitely not real.
because I think the girl in the last exorcism like actually does that backbend.
Yes. But then the lights go out, and again, it's the movement. He's sitting at the table and then smashes his face in the table.
A bunch. It's scary. I hated it so much.
We then cut to back at his apartment where the priest is there, his daughter is there, Blake is there, and he's in the back and he's not doing good. Like, there's no way. But we cut to the set where the director is like, hey, Sam Worthington, you've got to do it now. And he's like, yes, it's my time.
Well, he's sort of reluctant.
Yeah.
He does get talked into it.
Right.
But he's like, you got to save the movie. And he's like, well, how's Russell Crowe's character? And he's like, not good, man. He's not good.
He can't do the movie, man.
He like bashed his face in. He's clearly having some issues. He's not going to make the filming, okay?
Yeah.
So maybe you should step in here and help us out. And so Sam Worthington does agree to do that.
Right. But we cut to later that night, Sam Worthington's going through all the costumes. He puts the collar on. He's talking in the mirror. And then somebody punches through the mirror and strangles him. And it looks like Russell Crowe. We don't know how he got there. He never seems to leave his apartment. But this does happen.
And we do see it is Russell Crowe when he punches through the mirror. There is a scene where Sam Worthington is running the lines and the blocking for I think it's the Exorcist scene that they were trying to shoot with Russell Crowe, right? Mm-hmm. But as the camera is out further and you see all of the outside of the house, on the second story on the right-hand side, there's a figure sitting in the chair.
Right.
And then as Sam Worthington says something, you hear that figure in the chair say, yeah, and stand up.
Yeah.
And then that's when all the lights go. It's so fucking scary. All the lights go out, and then the lights by the makeup, mirrors.
The vanities.
Yeah, the vanities turn on. And so he walks down there and then gets killed the way you just described. And it is so scary.
Well, and it's super scary, but if we're looking at is it supernatural or is it in Russell Crowe's head? This does appear to be Russell Crowe, which is why you're like,
it does.
Why is he not in jail at the end? But we also have been in Russell Crowe's apartment and know he hasn't left.
Right.
So like, where is he? Because this is where they get the call that's like, Joe is dead. They found him in pieces. Like, this is bad. And she then goes to help Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
And she like gives him his pills, but he spits them out.
He Pez dispensers them out of his mouth.
Yes.
He's like, no. I'm going full demon today. Take me to set.
Full demon. Let's go. But Blake is like, I don't want to leave you. And Lee is like, it'll be okay. It's going to be okay. And they go to make out for a while and a camera passes their door. And the question is like, whose point of view is this? Who is behind the lens at this point?
Right.
They hear a loud thud, screaming, and lights flickering, and they run to Russell Crowe's room where he's coughing and wheezing.
Yeah.
And he then is clearly very possessed and says horrible things to her about her sexual orientation, her chosen partners, any number of things.
He also says some like incestual shit to her.
Yes.
It's gross.
Yes.
And it's not the grossest thing in the movie. It's the second grossest thing, but it's not the grossest thing.
It's really gross, but this is where we get the teapot to the head that doesn't have the Foley we wanted, and it's fine.
But because they had to knock him out because he is fully demon face right now and is like, whatever. So like, they knock him out.
Yeah, but he backs away and backs up to a window that we know is at least 3 to 4 floors up because of the stairs we've climbed.
Yeah.
And he jumps out the window, but then there's no sign of him. And this is where they're then talking to David Hyde Priest. And he's like, people are capable of miraculous things, but when they're consumed by darkness, the scale tips the other way and then some. And she says, can he be saved? And he says, yes, I know it. Which, if you are following the PTSD metaphor of it,
the trauma leading you to self-medicate metaphor, yes.
It is really refreshing to hear that of like, look, there's always time.
Yeah.
There is still time. But like, because of what happens next, you're like, no.
Well, because it turns out to be that this, horror movie sets be haunted sometimes.
Right.
It has nothing to do with his childhood trauma, which is like sad to me because they laid all that such good groundwork for it to be more or less a supernatural red herring. Like I was sad about it, honestly.
Same. Because then she's like, I know where he is. And it's the cold room. And there's no real reason. They haven't set that up necessarily. But they go there and they lay out this whole plan where like David High Priest is going to go in and then they're going to wait. But then he goes in and everything goes haywire. Blake disappears.
Yeah.
She follows them into the cold room and then she has to try and exorcise him and can't really. And he says some really fucked up shit to her, but she has the crucifix.
Can I say something before you talk about what happens next?
Yes.
I love as she walks onto the first floor of the set, which is where they are. Like she walks up there and it's like a bedroom set. So there's a bed, there's like a Bible on the ground and she walks over to go grab it. And that Bible's like, psych! And just moves like 8 feet to the right. And then she has to walk over there to go get it. And as she bends down and then stands up, we see her standing up and then we see her move a little bit. And now he's behind her where he was not behind her before. It's crazy scary.
He was not. And now David Hyde Priest and Blake are on either side of her.
Yes.
So like now everyone's there.
I think that this demon can just teleport anything under its control, maybe.
Yes.
But it's like, it is scary. Like this movie did scare me.
Right. But so she tries to exorcise the demon. It don't work. And she does have the crucifix though and presses it against its head, which distracts the demon enough that it drops the hold on the other two. And this is when David Hyde Pierce is like, all right, I'm a do this. And when it happens, run. Like some shit's about to hit the fan. Get the fuck out of here.
I love that David Hyde Priest was like, listen, a demon in your dad, not really much of a threat. But if that demon gets in me, ooh, bitch, you better run because like it is gonna be scary. With the access to the arcane knowledge that I have, that demon's gonna let loose and kill everybody. I thought it was a weird time to brag, David Hyde Priest. Come on.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
I think he was actually more scared that the demon would go into one of them instead.
Oh, I thought that, I mean, yeah, I don't really think he was bragging in that moment. I just think in hindsight, knowing what he was doing, you're like, oh, wait,
Yeah.
I guess he was sort of bragging about his like supernatural prowess.
Yeah.
But he does go over there and like lay hands on Russell Crowe and is like, demon, take me, baby. Take me.
Yeah, he does the Father Karras.
He does.
And Russell Crowe falls back, but then he has to then exorcise the demon. But the Bible bursts into flames because he's got to be off book, which is... This is a fun actor note. Earlier in the movie, during the audition, he was still on script.
I loved that too, Paige.
Which in acting parlance is you're still on book, which means you have to read your lines. You don't know them from memory. And in this, the book burns, so he has to be off book and recite the rites from memory because he does know them.
Yes.
But in doing that, he does the ritual that he did know deep down inside that it was struggling to perform because of the trauma associated with it.
But this is where he's like yelling all the angels' names and he's like,
serpent be gone.
Yeah, and like the two girls are also like chanting something in the background, like help us or something.
For us.
Pray for us is what it
us.
is. Yeah. It's like talking to somebody who just consistently is name dropping all their favorite like people.
Right.
You're like, stop it. You're like name dropping.
Pitbull, pray for us. Ludacris, pray for us. Oh my gosh, now I just want to make a list. Dolly Parton, bless us with your light.
Pray for us.
Yes.
Paige, these are all great deities or maybe even like archangels for our religion that we are starting for tax purposes.
No. Anyway, he's going to go to jail for all them murders and all them fingerprints.
He is.
But he does stab David Hyde Priest with a crucifix a whole bunch.
Well, yeah, because as he's name dropping, David Hyde Priest like lays back in the bed and it's like, it seems like they're actually casting out the demon or whatever. But then, of course, he's like, no, I'm a demon. Y'all can eat a dick.
Right.
I'm going to come up and like fight you guys some more. And as he's like, David Hyde Priest, now demonized, is yelling at them.
Right.
Russell Crowe's like, all right, I'm just going to stab it. Does anyone care? Like, I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm going to stab it. And he stabs it with the cross.
Yeah. Wild card.
Yeah. Everyone needs a wild card. And he stabs it in the throat. Like there's...
In the head and then in the throat. Yeah.
There is no saving David Hyde Priest.
No, he gone.
Who literally did nothing wrong in this movie, which again, I realized Father Karras, it follows a similar trajectory.
Sure.
I get what we're doing. I'm just also saying that he was a saint, literally. Anyway, so he gets stabbed in the throat and then they push him and then he like ignites.
And he catches on fire. Yeah.
Because they murder and destroy the body, so they can't go to jail. That's what they're doing.
Oh, there you go. That's why they're not in jail, because of the fire. Anyway, like anyone would believe them. They're the anyway.
They are definitely the witnesses. Yeah. They would definitely go to jail.
Yeah. We cut to months later. We don't know how long, but at this point, Russell Crowe is just like, it's been 1 day since my last confession, meaning he's probably going every day, which I was like, okay, this is your therapy at that point. As long as you're vocalizing your feelings.
Yeah, I mean,
great.
I could see you using that sort of confession thing, to therapeutic ends. So, like, great.
Yeah. And it's probably free.
Well, I mean, you got a tithe, right? Like, whatever you can give or whatever.
You don't have to.
Well, I mean, in the cult I grew up in, you have to, because they got to make that $20 billion a year, baby.
It's not a requirement in any of the versions I've grown up in, but it's heavily encouraged, but not required.
Of course.
There you go. But he is then kind of describing, he's like, me and my daughter were repairing things. We see her send him a new draft of her script.
Yeah.
And he's like, it feels like grace. And that's the movie.
So having seen the movie, having talked about the movie, Paige, what did you think about The Exorcism?
To me, it's so close to... I really liked the more grounded of the two stories.
Me too.
Because you are getting kind of two stories within it. And I thought the grounded one was the better one. And with very small changes, I thought this could have really been fantastic. But I also think that it got overshadowed by Pope's Exorcism. And so and now granted, this was filmed many years before, but...
Was it?
Yeah, it was. We'll go over it in fun facts.
Okay.
But I did really like it. I wish it had committed to the less flashy story. And I do feel like it was a studio note of where's the exorcism? You gotta,
If A24 had produced this movie, it would have been that.
Yeah.
And I think I would have preferred it. Although, I don't know. If you're a horror fan and you want a possession movie that has some very scary, jump scares and some scary, tension, this is a good movie. It is good for that.
Yeah.
I just feel like they almost really nailed an amazing movie. And it's in this weird, middle ground of, it's not bad, certainly, at all. It's well shot, it's well acted, there's a lot of great story here, but it's just not enough to make it a great movie.
Right.
And it's not crazy like The Pope's Exorcist is to
be a fun movie.
Right. It's interesting to me that they shot this beforehand.
Yeah.
I wonder if Russell Crowe was like, remember that time I almost played a priest? Let's do that, but make it weird.
Here's what I think. I think that this probably wasn't going to come out.
Interesting.
And that Pope's Exorcist got bought and they started the production machine on it. And this studio was like, oh, we got one of those. Let's put that out.
Oh, shit.
But they're two very different movies.
It was like a shelved movie they then decided to put out because of the Pope's Exorcist.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so unconfirmed, but that's that's what we, okay.
Unconfirmed, that's my theory.
Sure, okay, fair enough. I mean, plenty of studios do that.
Oh, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
That's the whole reason that the first, is it Leprechaun? No, there's something that comes out around the same time as Leprechaun. No, it was Leprechaun because it was once Friends got popular, Jennifer Aniston was worth putting on screen and hence Leprechaun. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But who knows? But I don't know. The movie isn't stellar, but it's good. And if you like scary movies, this movie scared the shit out of me, man.
It is scary. Yeah.
Yeah. And everyone does a good job in it.
The acting is incredible in it.
It's great. I just one more pass on the script where they connected the trauma story to the actual, what was actually happening. I would have loved it.
Because the actual, the scenes around the trauma story are phenomenal.
I know.
They're really good.
And they really inform, the acting choices that Russell Crowe is making. He is so grounded in that.
Yes.
And it's so good from that perspective. I was just so sad that it didn't actually end up being that. But it's still a very good, scary movie.
Yep.
Anyway, Paige, do you have any fun facts for us?
I do.
Well, hit us with your fun facts.
Demon fun facts. Now, we did already talk about the fact that Joshua John Miller is the son of Jason Miller, who played Father Damien Karras in the original Exorcist.
Yes.
I do think that's important to know with this movie.
Same.
But this was filmed between November and December of 2019.
What?
And not released until this year. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's that would have been right up against COVID. I wonder if they finished like shooting the movie.
Principal.
And then couldn't get people to finish working on it because of COVID, and then it just got shelved because of that.
Well, remember that they would have had until March.
True, yeah.
Of the year, and this is not a heavy editing movie. So this is not a movie that would have spent too long in editing.
There aren't many locations. It's like there might be 3. There's like his trailer, the set, which is awesome. I love the set.
Right.
And the house, his house. That's it, really.
Right.
Yeah.
It's minimal locations. The lighting might have proven to be somewhat of a challenge for some things, but it looks like they did a lot of stuff practically in camera. So I don't know that this would have had a long editing lead time, but even if, let's say that they were not able to get it edited before lockdown happened, which a lot of editors were working remote at the time. So like they might have still been able to get it edited, but even if they didn't, they would have been able to have that edited by 2021.
For sure. That would have been 2 years before the Pope's Exorcism, or the Pope's Exorcist. Oh my God. What if the Pope's Exorcist 2 is the Pope's Exorcism, and he has to exorcise the Pope? Oh my God, guys.
Hey, I'm here for it. But so to me, because that's still 3 years. So I think this was made and shelved. And then when Pope's Exorcist came out, they were like, oh yeah, why don't we put that out? Especially because people couldn't work during a pandemic. And so a lot of movies that would have been shelved are then now coming out because they needed content.
There's no other movies in the pipeline, or they're they're further back in the pipeline that they're not out yet,
Yeah, and Pope's Exorcist did come out in 2023, so they could have even seen the popularity of Pope's Exorcist first and then decided to put this out.
They were like, didn't we basically do this movie?
Yeah.
And they're like, maybe we should put that out.
Now, as I mentioned with the Georgetown Project, that was actually the title of this movie in France and the original working title of the script.
Oh, really?
In Spain, when it came out, it was called El Exorcismo de Georgetown.
Okay.
But that is a reference to the events of the original Exorcist, which is the basis for the movie, which then, of course happens in Georgetown, Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And yes, it is a remake of The Exorcist. They have confirmed
that the movie they're making in this movie is a remaking of The Exorcist. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Just to be clear, like this is not trying to be a remaking of The Exorcist.
Right. No. The main antagonist, aka demon, in the movie is the demon Moloch in the Western Christian versions of the Bible. It is a Canaanite god associated with the sacrifice of children, and that is who they are referencing. That is also probably why when Russell Crowe is possessed, he brings up that they did not want her and she was almost aborted.
Yeah.
That is probably why that is included. And those are your fun facts.
Well, thank you for those fun facts, Paige. Let's talk a little bit about box office. So what do you think the production budget was for The Exorcism?
So I think this is actually probably not that expensive because minimal locations. There are a lot of very talented, very famous people in it, but it's a pretty small movie. So I'm going to say they probably made this for $10 million.
Paige, I cannot wait to tell you that this movie cost, and I'm trying to confirm this, but I'm seeing it cost $22 million.
Ooh.
Which you mentioned earlier that the Pope's Exorcist had a ton of money and it's all on the screen. They're just having the most fun, all of that stuff. I looked it up. The Pope's Exorcist, the movie budget for that was $18 million.
Oh, and honestly, they do way more with that 18 mil.
I know. Anyway, so the movie did come to theaters. It was in theaters for 2 weeks, guys. It got to theaters July 21st and was in them for the weekend of July 28th as well, but was out of them after that. It was 7th in the theaters the first week it came out. Also in the theaters, the number 1 movie was Inside Out 2. Number 2 was Bad Boys Ride or Die. Number 3 was The Bike Riders. Number 4 was Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And number 5 was the Garfield movie. And then there were a few other movies. And then The Exorcism. Paige, what do you think The Exorcism brought in its opening weekend?
I'm going to say this only brought in about $2 million opening weekend.
Paige, you're almost exactly right. It was $2.4 million in its opening weekend. In its next weekend, and we'll just go because this is the last weekend it was in theaters, it dropped to 14th in the theaters.
Yep.
Beat by a ton of other movies and made almost $600,000.
Dang.
It didn't do great in theaters. If you can do math, you already know. But the total gross from this movie domestically was $4.5 million. It also made an international box office of $4.1 million for a total of $8.7 million. But guys, that's nowhere close to the $22 million budget. So this didn't do well. Which I'll say this, I didn't love the ending. I really think it should have done better in theaters. I do think it's better than that.
Yes.
I think it's better than Bombing. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is not a trash movie by any means. It is definitely worth seeing, I think.
Yes, but I think the popularity of The Pope's Exorcist helped and hurt it, because it made people be like, why is Russell Crowe in 2 exorcism movies in 1 year? But then it invites comparison between the two, and Pope's Exorcist is very, very fun.
Yes.
And this is not a fun movie. It just might be a good movie. And I think that a lot of people that saw it were like, oh, this isn't what I wanted at all. And word of mouth got out.
Yeah, I would say if you're a the Pope's Exorcism or Pope's Exorcist kind of fan, I keep pitching my sequel. Oof, I got to stop calling it Pope's Exorcism. But that is a different movie altogether than this is even trying to be. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That is trying to be a fun horror movie. This is trying to be I think, a good horror movie that makes a point about trauma.
Right.
And that's why I feel like it misses its mark a little bit. And maybe that isn't what they were trying to do, you know?
Right.
So who am I? I didn't write and direct the movie, so I don't know that for sure. But that's the way it felt watching it.
Right.
Anyway. That's your box office page. Do you want to hit them with that scary scale?
Sure. Our scary scale is a scale of 1 to 10 of how scary we found the movie today, with 1 being Ghostbusters and 10 being Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Todd, where are you going to put it?
I'm going to give it a 6. There were many jump scares that really got me in this movie. And jump scares are the most scary thing for me.
Yeah, I'm going to put it at a 3, just because there is a fair amount of dread, and the dread works really well.
Yeah, it does.
And there's a handful of, I would say, earned jump scares, not cheap ones. So I'm going to have this around a 3.
Yeah.
And that's your scary scale.
Well, Paige, this week you made us watch The Exorcism, and I'm smiling, and so are you now, because you just also remembered what we're doing next week and what we're starting with, Paige. And you know what, Paige? Because of what it is, and I'll say your relationship to the star of that movie, I'm going to go ahead and let you...
There is no relationship.
Paige, there's a relationship, whether he knows it or not. But, Paige, I think you need to explain now what you were hinting at in Heretic, and then what we can now explain and go into next month.
Look, you're the one who told me this movie existed.
Paige, because I knew you'd want to see it.
I know. And Netflix did tell me right after, but...
Of course, because when they were writing this, they had a bunch of thirsty romance novel ladies emails that they were about to shoot this ad to. You're for sure on a list for this guy.
I'm sure the second I announce it, they're going to be like, thank God, this is what we were hoping for. This one micro influencer watched our movie.
Oh, no, I don't mean that's why you're on the list, Paige.
Oh.
I mean you're on the list because they have...
You mean a watch list to keep away from him?
Yes, yes.
I would never. Anyway. So... Todd informed me that a movie existed.
How dare you put this on me? Netflix also informed you.
Sure, after you informed me. But if you are a fan of our sister podcast, Romancing the Pod, you might have already sniffed around what we are going to do. Now, we did create an entire month around it, and I'm actually super excited for the rest of the month as well. But so Todd messaged me and was like, Paige, you have to see this movie because... It's literally basically Mithrigan with the guy from 365.
Yes.
If you're not familiar with 365, don't bother to watch it. Just go listen to our episodes. That's all you need. We've done 3 because there's 3 of them. I can't wait to do the 4th when it comes out. But 365 is an insane series that we did on Romancing the Pod. But there is a movie on Netflix right now called Subservience,
starring the same guy, Massimo from 365.
Playing Massimo, it's Michele Morone is his name, but he played Massimo in 365. And Megan Fox in Subservience. It's a sci-fi horror. That's what we're going to kick off our month with. But this month is going to be Killer Ladies.
Yes.
And that's ladies that kill people in a number of different ways. So we're starting with Subservience.
Do we want to mention some of the other movies we're going to do?
Oh, you thought we were never going to get around to doing Species? Surprise, we're going to do fucking Species.
I cannot wait. I've heard so much about a certain tongue in that movie.
That's the one that I was like, look, if we're doing Subservience, let's also do Species.
And then we're also going to do, I think there are 4 Mondays, right?
There are 4 Mondays.
The listeners get one request, obviously. But I think the other movie that we're going to do is Revenge, correct?
Revenge, because we liked The Substance so much.
And it was the same director, right? I believe it's the same director. Don't quote me on that. Pretty sure it is. Anyway, but that's going to be your January, guys. women that kill, and I know what you're thinking, is Megan Fox a woman if she's a robot? And listen,
Yes.
maybe we're not talking about her, but also yes. And your homework for next week is to either completely for the first time understand why Paige is super into Massimo from 365, or experience it yet again because you've seen him 1,000 times in the 365 series.
Sure.
That's your homework for next week while you watch Subservience and the report back for that episode.
Yay. And Todd, do you have any reviews for us?
I do. This week, I'm actually going to read a 5-star review. I realize I'm not, I like go to Spotify because it's easier on my computer to do that, but I feel bad. So let me actually read a podcast review from the Apple Podcast app. And this one comes in from, it's STVR Customs. And they say, definitely love the takes. 5 stars. Love the takes and views. Sometimes they're wildly off or different, which I respect, especially like Lisa Frankenstein and how she was shown and thinking Evil Dead isn't an Evil Dead movie, but I love the show. So I think what they did with 0 punctuation there, Paige, is talk about how they love the show, even though they may not love every one of our takes on the movies. And I feel like that's fair.
Sure.
I often have wrong takes, especially on this show, because I don't like love horror. I don't know if you know, guys. I say it at the beginning of every episode. So, like, if you don't like my takes, you're in the right place.
Yeah.
You know?
Fair.
Paige's takes are always right on, and I can't speak otherwise because she'll get mad at me. But thank you so much for that. Paige, you've never gotten mad at me. It's fine. Well, at least that you verbalized. I do also want to read this Spotify comment from our most recent The First Omen episode that came out last Monday. And I'll say this, a lot of them were like, you guys were so wrong. This movie was way better than Immaculate. P.S. I saw this movie first.
Disagree. Still disagree. Immaculate's so much better.
I know, Paige, I disagree too, but here's what's interesting. I started asking people, which one did you see first?
Yeah.
And it was like, this is so anecdotal because it's such a small sample size. But everybody I asked and that responded said that they saw The First Omen first and then Immaculate.
Yep.
And I just thought that was interesting that the first one we saw first was the one that we preferred, and same with them.
Yeah.
But it's a different movie. Anyway, I thought that was super interesting. And listen, there was tons of comments about that. I'm not going to read one of those because we talked about it a lot, right?
Yeah.
But I am going to read this one from Carrie, who said, I needed that PMP reference today. So apparently one of us made a project managing
it was me, I
joke
think.
on that episode. So whoever made that joke, kudos to you, probably, Paige. But
I know it was both of us. It was both of us.
Was it?
Yeah, I remember because I think I mentioned, I was like, somebody needs a sauna or whatever.
oh, yes. No, I do remember that now. That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, Carrie, thank you so much for noticing that Paige and I are both, day job nerds as well as film nerds.
Yep.
And if you want to have me read your 5-star Apple review or Spotify comment, leave one of those things and I'll do just that. So guys, if you like this show but want to hear Paige and I talk about romantic comedies or just regular romantic movies, check out our other podcast. Some might call it a sister podcast called Romancing the Pod, where we do just that weekly. It's a lot like this show, but for romance and romantic comedies because Paige doesn't like them. So we make her watch them, just like you guys make me watch horror over here. But if you want to follow me, I am at Todd J. Awesome on all the social media. Paige is at Rampage Wesley on Instagram?
Yes. And TikTok.
And just Paige Wesley on Twitter, because you got that before some CEO lady and she wanted it, but you wouldn't give it back. And I respect you for that.
Refuse.
Also, Paige
Suck it, other Paige Wesley.
Paige is also on another podcast. It's great. You should check it out. It's called Cult Podcast with Armando Torres, who is a wonderful person. And if you want to support this show, go to Patreon at patreon.com/horrorvirgin, where there are a lot of great levels and a lot of great things. We do the Patreon shout outs at the beginning of every episode. We do listener requests, stuff like that, bonus episodes. So you'll be getting all of that content, plus episodes a day early with no ads, and who doesn't love that? So sign up for the Patreon and get a lot of great stuff.
And that's going to be it for us, you guys. I'm Paige.
And I'm your horror virgin, Todd.
Keep it ooky spooky.
Yeah. Have an amazing week, guys. Bye! David Hyde Priest nerds.